everybody. We're here on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, heading toward Philadelphia for a couple days. And I posted a video about where the money goes from the Pennsylvania Turnpike. And I got an interesting question. Somebody asked me, well, do a video on the Penns. So the Penn family is the family on which Pennsylvania is named, and so few people know really anything about it. So I checked it out, talked to my research team. Here are 3 fun facts about the Penn family. Now, the Penns have a long history, of course, in Pennsylvania, and to such an extent that they named the state after them. So the Penns based their legacy on their family business, which started in the fountain pen industry and of course expanded over time into the ballpoint pens and etc. But early on, fountain pens were really the preliminary pens that grew along with the country. And in fact, the original Penn family fountain pen was called the Fount, and it was carried around by Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson. And the main complaint at this time was that it would suddenly malfunction and get ink all over their 100% cotton Revolutionary shirts. So a younger pen came up with the idea of calibrating the ink to the temperature, the outside temperature, which worked out very nicely. So fun fact number 1 is the Penn family changing their product in response to consumer feedback. And a lot of times the consumer was one of the founding fathers of the country. But remember, they didn't really think about themselves that way. They didn't walk around going, I'm a founding father. Are you? There wasn't a secret handshake. They were just a bunch of guys that found themselves in the new world, and they needed to write down some stuff. And just like today, a pen is never around when you need it, because so much, especially today, we don't really need a pen. We have our smartphone with us usually, and we can just make a audio note, or some phones you can write on, or you can just type a quick note. But sometimes you do need a pen, and you look around, you can't find one. Well, that was the same thing back in the early days of the Penn family. So they were instrumental in helping the country grow by providing writing instruments. And one of the documents that was foundational to the country, you may have heard of it as the Declaration of Independence. Well, the ink on that document came from the Penn family pens. So, fun fact number 2 is that one of the requests that they got early on, when the country started to develop a espionage outfit, and today known as the CIA, was to have disappearing ink. And the Penn family, again, it was a family. It wasn't really a company. They would just look at each other around the dinner table and say, okay, Benjamin Franklin wants some disappearing ink so that he can do some spy work. And they started to think of different ideas. And around Halloween, one of the Penns came up with disappearing ink. It just happened to come around Halloween. And they tested it by writing some documents. The kids would come to the Penn family home, and they'd say, hey, we don't have any candy, but here's a check for $1,000. And the kids would be like, 1,000? What? Yay! $1,000. And they'd write the check in disappearing ink, and the kid would get home and they'd say, Mom, Dad, we got a check for $1,000. and they'd open up their bag and the check would be blank. And the parents would be like, oh, that's a mean trick. Somebody pulled on you, lying to you. They say, no, we saw him write it. We saw him write it right in front of us. He wrote it. So it kind of became a controversy in the neighborhoods, and the Penns were under a little pressure to quit picking on little kids. But that was the beginning of disappearing ink. Really fascinating. And finally, fun fact number 3 about the history of the Penn family was eventually they wanted to develop a new product line. And what eventually became the ballpoint pen was the result of one of the little kids in the Penn family playing around on the floor as their mom, as their mothers were doing a knitting circle. And the little kids were playing around on the floor, and he broke open one of the revolvers that the fathers had laying around. In those days, they didn't worry about gun safety. The little kids could play with them and stuff. And he broke open the revolver bearings inside the gun, and they went spilling all over the floor. And the kids loved it because they're like steel balls. It's perfect. Well, one of the fathers just happened to be walking by one of the Penns, and he's like, "Hey, wait a minute! Ball bearings inside of a pen," and that's ultimately what became the ballpoint pen. And of course there was several versions of it before they got it right. But guys, amazing history of the pens, the ballpoint pen, the disappearing ink, and the ink on the Declaration of Independence are all related to this fascinating family on which this state is named.